Welcome back to the OSM channel. Today I figure I'd take you along and show you what I've been working on. So I've been working on building some trails as well as building this pad. Now what is the purpose of the pad and the trails? Well, this is my sugar bush, right? Like I like to make maple syrup, taking it up a notch this year, bought some equipment. You guys that watch the channel know the story. But this is where I do most of my tapping. This is where most of my maple sap comes from. Now in the past, I've collected the sap with buckets, but look at the topography here. It's steep, probably a 40% grade. You mix in snow and ice. I mean, dealing with 2-gallon aluminum buckets, dumping those into 5-gallon water jugs, it's a mess. It's a great way to get hurt and roll an ankle. So I'm transitioning all of this hillside from buckets to tubing. Now the thing about tubing stretches from tree to tree. I've heard that squirrels like to chew on tubing, other critters, and then you have branches that can come down on the tubing. So during your season, it's really important that you go out and inspect your tubing, ideally once a week. You know, I don't have a vacuum pump set up here. I don't plan to. I'm just going to use natural vacuum. But I want to have a trail that allows me to easily and safely walk up the mountain here and inspect the tubing line. So that's exactly what I've been doing. Now, all the tubing is going to come down to this pad right here. And what's going to go on this pad? Well, I have a 230-gallon stainless steel tank that I got from CDL Maple. And I'm going to throw that right on the pad. My plan is, this is a dry stack stone wall. I've been splitting these by hand. There's no mortar or anything. But in order to get a valve on the bottom of the tank has to be up slightly. So I'm figuring I'll buy a few bags of mortar or concrete, a couple 4x4s or 6x6s, and embed those 6x6s or 4x4s in the mortar, have a nice flat or slightly pitched C-shaped base for the angle iron on the bottom of the tank to sit on, and that'll allow me to thread on a 90-degree fitting on the bottom of the tank, extension, nipple, and then a ball valve. So that's my plan. So the other thing about this pad, before I constructed this pad, I picked out the spot where I want to have my evaporator to boil the sap, which is about 25 feet away. I determined the height of where the evaporator pan is going to sit. And then I decided to shoot a laser level line over to this marker, and I actually went up a foot in elevation. So the idea is the tank is probably going to be 1.5 feet higher than the height of the evaporator pan, so this way the sap can just be gravity fed into the pan. That was the idea behind that. My only small concern is going to be the feed line between the tank to the evaporator, because it's going to be winter time. I'm a little bit concerned about that line freezing up. Probably going to use like a food grade, like an RV water line, something like that. My thinking is, if I'm out here boiling, it's probably going to be above freezing. So just at the end of every day, I'm going to have to remove the water line between the tank to the evaporator, walk it out, drain it, and it won't be a big deal. As for the ball valve on the tank itself, I plan to go with probably a 1-inch, 1.5-inch ball valve, something fairly large, something that can hopefully withstand freezing. I mean, these tanks are designed to be outside, so I'm not too concerned about it, but if that 304 stainless steel ball valve does freeze up on me, it won't be a big deal. I have power probably 10 feet behind the camera, so I could always come out here with a heat gun, or I could always put some heat tape around the valve, put a timer on it. There's ways around that, so not a big deal. There's tanks. The tank's going to go on the pad. Now, only thing is, I have probably 15 or 20 trees beneath this grade that I still want to tap, so they're going to have to be tapped via traditional buckets. Now I'm going to collect that sap via 5-gallon water jugs, and then I'm going to have to haul those jugs up to the tank here and dump the sap in the tank, and then that'll be my holding tank. So that won't be a big deal. There's a small incline right here. You can just stand right here, dump it in. I'm going to have to do some type of cover on top of the tank, so these are all things I'm thinking about. But this is where the trail starts, and this is where I've been doing a lot of work. So for tubing runs, I'm going to have a low line. There's going to be a high line that goes in the same direction. And then there's going to be at least one that goes in that direction. I have my best producing maple tree over in that direction. Probably close to 2 gallons a day on peak runs. So how I've been building this trail is I rake back the leaves. I line the lower edge of the trail with these rocks, and then I just level out the soil a little bit. I'm very careful not to disturb the roots, but this is just to ensure I don't roll an ankle. But I'm loving this trail. The idea behind this trail, because we have a low line and a high line, decided to run the trail right in the middle, so that way when I walk up here, I can inspect both lines at the same time. Let's see my tap hole from this year in this tree. It looks like a 2-tap for the tubing. It's a beautiful sugar maple right there. Really healthy canopy. Now you may notice that I have an extension cord on the left side of the trail here. Why do I have an extension cord? Well, I've been moving all these rocks over to the side by hand with the help of that lever. Now I ran into this rock. The trail had to go this way, but I was just not strong enough with that lever to move it out of the way, so I had to break out the rotary hammer drill and some feather and wedges and kind of break it apart. It didn't really fracture clean like granite. I don't know what this is, but that was a fight. That took probably 2 hours to break through that. Kind of crumbled into gravel. That is it's a pretty cool addition to the trail, if you ask me. So it's been pretty easy going up to that point, and we have some big boulders up ahead, so I figure get the camera out. You guys could follow along as I work my magic and try and build a trail here. So I've run into another issue. This is a rock that's far too deep and too large for me to leverage out of here. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to drill down into this with an SDS rotary hammer drill. This is an SDS Max. We're going to drill probably 4 holes, and we're going to take some feathers and wedges, stick them in the holes, try and bust apart this lower side of the rock that we want out of the way. Now we're spoiled with these power tools. I tell you, back in the day, if you wanted to drill a hole into a rock and blast it out of the way, you'd have a single man or a double man team. They'd call them a double jack team. You'd have one guy holding onto the star drill bit with both his hands. The other guy would be swinging a small sledgehammer. And every hit, the bit holder would have to lift up the bit and turn it a quarter turn. Lift. I guess to help extract the dust. And that's back when men were men. We're spoiled little girls nowadays with our tools. So I have 4 holes drilled. Sometimes I blow them out. Today I'm not blowing them out. But these are our feathers and wedges. So there's 2 feathers and then 1 wedge. You insert these in these holes. Then you gently tap on them in a line. I know it's better to clean out these holes. I don't really care what happens here. Now if I wanted to do a nice clean split, typically I'd take a chisel and I'd whack the chisel with the back of a mallet along that line to try and create a microfracture to encourage the rock to split among that line, which is not always possible. It doesn't always work out like that, heavily dependent on the type of rock and how it was formed. So these are all set. And the idea behind these is these create so much pressure, I guess so much tension in the rock, that it has to do something. It has to split somehow. That's how it's supposed to work anyway. So we'll tap on these and I'll let you listen to them. So this is the same issue I was having with that last rock I went through on this trail. This stuff doesn't like to fracture cleanly. It kind of likes to break apart on the upper layers, and it's a battle. It's a battle for sure. That's about it. I think you guys get the idea as to what I'm doing here. Sometimes those feathers and wedges work out great, especially on granite, really hard stone, but whatever rock this is, it kind of works at fracturing the upper layer, and then you just got to bust it apart with a mallet. Not a whole lot of fun, but what are you gonna do?